Welcome to Business Explained, where we take a closer look at the companies. Thanks for all of the feedback, views and likes. We honestly didn't expect such a positive reception. Today we are coming back with another topic.
When we started brainstorming ideas for the next episode, I suggested Snapchat, and Karo's reaction was,
Is this company still alive?
and as it turns out, Snapchat is still alive, and many would argue that they're better than ever. So as usual, we'll dive into the company overview, their products, the customers, competitors, financial results, and key risks. So let's begin.
Snapchat was created by Evan Spiegel, Bobby Murphy and Reggie Brown, former students at Stanford University, released in September 2011. In the company's first ever blog post, Spiegel introduced Snapchat as a new way to share information that you wanted to see disappear. The app quickly became a hit among teenagers, sending billions of photos and videos which were meant only to see daylight for a moment or two. Today, Snapchat is marketed as an app that empowers people to express themselves, live in the moment, learn about the world, and have fun together. It's the easiest and fastest way to communicate full range of human emotions with your friends without pressure to be popular, pretty, or perfect. Fast forward to 2021 and the company claims to have 265 million daily active users who create 5 billion snaps a day. Average user opens the app 30 times a day and 75% of the users engage with AR every day. Let's open Snapchat app. What do we see? It contains 5 tabs, or what you can call functionalities: camera, communication, snap map, stories, and spotlight. Snapchat opens directly to the camera, making it easy to create snap and send it to friends. The augmented reality capabilities allow for creativity and self-expression. The app offers millions of lenses created by both company and its community, along with the creative tools and licensed music which make it easy for people to personalize and contextualize their snaps. Users can also create snaps on their wearable devices, spectacles which connect seamlessly with Snapchat and capture photos and videos from human perspective. With communication, users can send messages through text, snaps. They can even voice or video call. They can also communicate with personalized avatar tool, Bitmoji, stickers and images, which integrate seamlessly into both mobile devices and desktop browsers. Snap Map is a live and highly personalized map that allows Snapchatters to connect with friends and explore what's going on in their local area. SnapMap makes it easy to locate nearby friends, view a heat map of recent snaps, and locate local businesses. Profiles of local businesses that include information such as store hours and reviews allow Snapchatters to take direct actions from map, such as sharing a favorite store, ordering takeout, or making a reservation. Stories feature content from friends, community, and content partners. The Discover section of this tab displays content based on users' subscriptions, interest, news, and entertainment. Snapchat also offers brand profiles as a way for advertising partners to scale their content on the platform. For example, Gucci allowed customers to try on their shoes directly in the app. Spotlight is a way to broadly share user-generated content with the entire Snapchat community. Here, the most entertaining snaps are shared all in one place, and they are tailored to each user based on their preferences. Frankly, I was quite surprised how the app changed since the last time I used it. Also, the VR glasses seem to add a whole new world to Snapchat audience.
Naturally, Snapchat targets more of a younger group of people. So, in fact, around 75% of their users are aged between 13 and 34. More interestingly, I would never think that Snapchat would be still growing its daily active user base. However, as it turns out, after the stagnation in late 2017s and 2018, the numbers went back to a solid growth in both 2019 and 2020 data, predominantly due to popularity in what is called the rest of the world segment. It is likely an effect of Snapchat's decision to upgrade its Android app, and it has given them a substantial boost in users, especially in countries such as India, which are very heavy on Android. This has come after a long time of stagnation of the Android app, at the time when Snapchat was mostly targeting the Apple product users. However, now after they rethought the strategy back in 2018, it has resulted in a very strong growth and opportunities for their platform. As much as the user growth is very important for Snapchat, we have to understand how the user growth is then being monetized by the company. So far, the key to Snapchat's profitability sits in North America, where they're able to reach the highest average revenue per user. In terms of the monetary value, we can see that the average revenue per user grew from $1.53 back in 2017 to $3.44 in 2020, which is over double the amount that they've had back in 2017. More importantly, we can see that this growth is being driven primarily by the growth in North America. However, also the other geographies are starting to generate higher and higher average revenues per user. So as you can see on the graph here, there is some significant spikes and downs in Snapchat's revenues per user. Naturally, with usually the fourth quarter of the year being the most sort of prominent given the Christmas period and the amount of shopping and marketing spend that companies usually put in this time of the year. Despite the recent growth, if we compare Snapchat to the likes of Twitter and Facebook, they still look rather poorly in terms of the average revenue per user. So for example, Twitter gets over 3 times as much of revenue as Snapchat is, and Facebook over 10 times the amount.
Snapchat competes primarily with companies that focus on mobile engagement and advertising. Many of these companies, such as Apple, Facebook, Google, TikTok, and Twitter, have significantly greater financial and human resources, and in some cases, larger user bases. Given the variety of Snapchat products, those are not the only companies that they compete with. It is also worth mentioning that the competition for engagement varies by region. For instance, in Asia they face competition from big players like Kakao, Line, Naver, or Tencent. Although it seems like in pandemics the consumption of social media increased, this is still a very competitive field. Snap Incorporation CEO famously turned down $3 billion offer from Facebook to buy then 2-year-old Snapchat in 2013. We could argue that this decision stepped on Mark Zuckerberg's toes, who later on introduced the famous Instagram stories, which many of us considered a clone of Snapchat. Was it a good decision? I don't know, but Philip might have an answer for us.
So let's us first understand how Snapchat developed financially over the recent years, and I'll make sure that we're gonna cover this question towards the end of this section. Financially, Snapchat is very similar to a lot of other Silicon Valley companies and startup in general. It puts a very high emphasis on a strong user growth over financial stability in the early days. So the overall belief is that the company will benefit more and more the bigger user base they're able to generate. And once they generate the user base, then they will be able to monetize on them and achieve greater financial performance over the long term. As a result of this strategy, Snapchat has a long history of operating losses. Hopefully, as the time goes, they'll be able to get into the profitability. But first, let's have a look into how they're actually generating revenues and where are their revenues coming from. Unsurprisingly, pretty much all of Snapchat's revenue are coming from advertising. And this is pretty much mostly coming from Snap ads and AR ads. In addition, they generate a very small portion of revenue from selling their hardware products, Spectacles. In terms of the numbers, over the past years, Snapchat continues a very strong growth in revenues of around 40%, reaching $2.5 billion in revenues in 2020. As mentioned earlier, it still incurs net losses, which amounted to over $900 million last year. However, there is some positivity behind this data. The company continues to decrease its net loss year over year after it went public back in 2017. Moreover, Snapchat reported a positive adjusted EBITDA in 2020 for the first time in history. So let us have a closer look into this particular metric. Basically, the adjusted EBITDA is just another metric for investors in company management to try to understand from a little bit closer how the company is making money by adjusting its non-cash and non-recurring expenses to calculate the metric. So basically they're excluding things like interest income, interest expenses, some non-recurring payments, stock-based compensation, and things like that. The core to this point is that for the first time in history, they're able to make this metric positive. And as a result, many investors started to believe that this is a very first step for the company to reach profitability. And some of them are actually sort of as positive towards company operations that they're looking for breaking even within the next 2 to 3 years. So coming back to our question, Carol, I think it was a really, really good move from Snapchat's management team. They're able to develop the company over the recent years. They're on their way to the profitability in the upcoming years, and their market capitalization is way over whatever Mark Zuckerberg offered a few years ago, now being at around $70 billion. Before I move into the risk section, I just wanted to send a big thank you for each and every one of your comments from the last video. I know that some of you in particular were really interested in the risk section. So again, if there's anything in particular that we want to dive into or you want to get to know a little bit further, just let us know in the comments and we'll try to accommodate for these. So let's dive into the risks and see how we're trying to structure them. In terms of the risk factors, we can observe here 3 key categories. So number 1 being operational risks, number 2 being financial risks, and number 3 being data and privacy concerns. In terms of the operational risks, we can see sort of 3 key threats for Snapchat. A very heavy dependence on mobile providers, dependence on Amazon and Google for their cloud services, and number 3 being very strong growth from competitors. In terms of the dependence on mobile device providers, because of Snapchat being only a mobile app, it must remain operable with all of the key operating systems. And we've seen this being already a struggle for them as they weren't developing their Android app as quickly as they could. As a result, they were losing a potential growth of customers in some parts of the world. And as a result of this threat, any sort of changes and any sort of direction that they want to take the app into, they always have to concern how companies like Google or Apple are gonna react to their strategies, and if they're gonna allow for all of the changes within their mobile app. Additionally, the mobile devices that those companies produce, and even more importantly, mobile device cameras, are manufactured by a wide variety of players. But what might come to struggle is that perhaps a new camera or some sort of new camera lenses that they would be installed might not be operable with Snapchat's app, and as a result, get them out of business. Secondly, the dependence on Amazon and Google for cloud services. Snapchat relies on these players on the vast majority of computing, storage, bandwidth, and a lot of other services. And any disruption to these would very negatively affect Snapchat's operation and could seriously harm their business. And this is especially important as back in 2017, Snapchat committed to spend $2 billion per year with Google for the following 5 years and $1.1 billion with AWS for the next 6 years. And lastly, heavy competition. So as we've seen in Carol's section, Snapchat faces a very strong and significant competition in pretty much every single part of the world. And a lot of these players are trying to adopt very similar features to the one that Snapchat is running, with the example being Facebook Stories, now YouTube moving into YouTube Shorts. Similarly, in other parts of the world, companies like TikTok, Kakao, and a lot of others are just trying to get in a very similar space that Snapchat is playing at. So we'll see how they will be able to differentiate themselves in this, what is a very sort of condensed market at the moment. But all in all, for sure, Snapchat's ability to grow will always depend on how strong their competitors are and how much they're able to differentiate themselves. In terms of financial risks, there is 2 key risks that we want to highlight. So number 1 is the single source of revenue, and number 2 being continuous operating losses. In terms of the single source of revenue, as we've heard, Snapchat generates 99% of its revenue from advertising. It is just extremely difficult for them to get into anything else. They're trying with the new glasses. However, it's still very, very much difficult for them to get into anything else than advertising. So they would have to work really tremendously to be able to invest in other lines of business and bringing just additional sources of revenue into their operations. And lastly, data and privacy risks. When you dive into Snapchat's privacy policy, you'd think that they're a really, really caring company in terms of your integrity of your personal data, of their communications with you. They're trying to be crystal clear in terms of how they're sort of deleting all of your personal information, all of your photos, all of your messages that you don't want the world to see. However, as much as they're really aware of this threat and they're aware of the value prop they're trying to offer to people, it is still available for some of their employees to dive into your personal data and to browse through whatever you're sending to your friends. So in some of the reports that I've read, for example, one from Motherboard, Snapchat employees were actually abusing access to the data recently. In the past, similar issues happened in other companies, including Google and Facebook, and probably countless others. However, it is extremely crucial for them to understand that this is the very core to the value prop that they offer to a lot of people. So if any sort of similar things were to happen in the future, a lot of people might just think that actually, this is no longer the value prop that they're being able to deliver. So no matter how safe you think that your data is still with Snapchat and how quickly it disappears, there always have to be a little bit of a doubt in terms of how long they'll actually be, storing this information and who else might have access to it. And, any sort of potential breaches as a result could have some serious implications on the company future.
If you made it to this point, congrats and thank you so much. It's already dark outside, so consider liking this video and subscribing, and let us know which companies we should focus on next. Bye!